Welcome to Cedar Club, Quincy's favorite local bar. A friendly corner bar with a laid-back atmosphere and affordable drinks. It's the perfect spot for a great time. With entertainment galore, including shuffleboard, golden tee, pool, foosball, and winning gaming machines. Cedar Club's latest edition is the best spot to catch your favorite game. Great drinks, great friends, and great times. Cedar Club, 20th and Cedar in Quincy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Muddy. I'm Brittany Boll, and today my guests are Dr. Jessica Curry, who is the leader of the Blessings Women's and Children's Services, and Jamie Kane, the Administrative Director of Women's Health Services. Sorry for the mouthful. I know your titles are much larger than that because you have many titles behind your names. This is the one that I think we're focusing on today because you're here to share some good news with our viewers.
Yes.
And what is the good news?
Very, very, very exciting news. So we're blessed with a grant from the state of Illinois. It's the Birth Equity Seed Grant Fund, which is huge for our community because it's money that we are able to invest in our organization and invest in our community to really serve women well and ensure that they have great outcomes, not only around childbirth, but the time leading up to and that time for their family afterwards. So this is a huge win for the families in our community, and we are very, very honored and very proud that the state recognized the work that we have done up until this point to be able to do this.
So speaking of huge, the amount of that grant is large. It's a $400,000 grant.
Yep.
How were you the ones awarded this grant?
Yes. So we were one of a few organizations across the state of Illinois who were awarded this money, but we were awarded a very large sum of money. So kind of just to take a step back, just a couple steps back, the Blessed Beginnings, which is the OB Center for the hospital, has been partnered with ILPQC, which is the Illinois Perinatal Quality Collaborative. We've been a part of their quality mission for years. Back in 2021, every couple years they do a quality initiative, and we have participated in that. And back in 2021, they started the Birth Equity Program, which was really a program around looking at bias in healthcare, looking at bias in women's health, and how we can do better as a health system, how we can do better as a state at meeting women where they are, and ensuring that everybody has equal access to resources. So we started that back in 2021 and realized immediately that we had some work to do to ensure that we had consistent practices that allowed every family the same opportunity across the board. So we went to work very strong, very diligently right out of the gate. So because of some of the projects that we'd already had in play, we had a really strong case when it came to writing for this grant. Like, hey, these are the things that we've already done, and here's what we want to do, but we just need a little bit of help. Because I think the community is all very aware that resources are kind of slim in today's society, right? So to be able to get across the finish line and be able to really drive home that win for our families and our community, we needed just a little extra help. So we're thrilled that the state was able to give us a really large amount of money to do some really awesome things.
Was part of that grant writing, was it actually having to point out some of the biases or flaws that you still had to work on?
So some of the things that we had to identify was where we still had gaps. And we knew that one of the things that we still had gaps with was getting resources to women and making sure that people had access to those things regardless of whatever their factors were. So one of the big things that we have seen locally, and Dr. Curry can talk a little bit about that, is some of the risk factors that we have in this community especially. And I think people sometimes think that because we're in a rural area, we're immune to some of the things that the big city sees, and we're not. So if you look at the morbidity and mortality report for women's health for the state of Illinois, you can see very clearly that because we're in a rural community, we are at some of the highest risk for factors like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, some different social determinants of health, which is one of the things that we wrote into our grant was we already, as part of the Birth Equity Project, we're screening every single patient who walked through our doors for social determinants of health. So things like, do you know where your next meal is coming from? Do you ever worry about where you're going to sleep tonight? Do you worry about how you're going to pay your rent? Do you have a place to
So you
rent?
ask everyone those questions all across
Every single one across the
Okay.
board. Yes.
Do you have electricity? Do you have running water? Do you have transportation?
Yep.
Things like that I think we in the community often take for granted.
Yeah.
You know, I make an appointment for a patient with a high-risk specialist that's maybe not in this community, and the next question is, how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
And we often left them to find a ride or tried to arrange it through the hospital to get them transportation. But that's some of the work that we're going to
Yeah.
be doing with this grant
That's
is to
awesome.
Yeah. And that was
provide
some
those
of our
resources.
vulnerabilities is like, okay, so we were already asking these questions, but then what?
Yeah.
we
Like,
couldn't do anything about it.
right?
Yeah.
What do we
Like
do
there
with
was
that information?
Identifying
some
the
people-
problem, but
yeah.
then kind of being like, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
And to be a good community partner, you know, for us to be able to come alongside you best, we need to have something to do. It's not enough for me to say, hey, do you have enough food to eat? But if I don't have a resource to connect you with or the people to help connect you and come alongside you, then it doesn't do any good. And this grant allows us to get resources in place to be able to come alongside you when you tell us, I need help with this. Because that's a vulnerable spot
Yeah.
to be in, to say, hey, I need some help. And kind of take some of those factors out of play for these people who need help.
That's
Which is
awesome.
pretty cool.
I think that's
Yeah.
amazing, especially with, you know, I know from firsthand just the lack of those resources in the community from other different programs, not yours necessarily, but just how what was once there is, you know, no longer there. So I think a lot of people that maybe are turning or have turned to possibly family planning and things like
Yep.
that in the past where their resources have been cut, maybe they can come to you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, very, very cool.
that is awesome.
I want Dr. Curry to be able just to elaborate a little bit about the complexity of some of the patients that we're seeing
Yes,
now.
please do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. We know that women in general, at the current rate, enter pregnancy. One out of every 4 women enter pregnancy with a complex medical condition, whether that's what you spoke to, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart failure. I mean, there are some very complex problems that make pregnancy that much more complicated and that much more high risk. And we know specifically that African American and women of other minorities actually are at higher risk of those comorbidities. And so the goal with this grant is to hire some community health workers and doulas to come alongside those women and help them throughout their pregnancy, making sure that they are getting to these specialists, because it's not just me that manages, you know, all of those issues in pregnancy. I have to rely on other specialties, and it's collaborative care. Some of those specialties are available here in this community, but much like we were talking about, we rely heavily on our referral center, which we have a perinatal agreement with Springfield, Illinois. And so oftentimes we are referring out there for some higher risk consultations. And so they are going to be able to help us make sure that these patients are not falling through those holes or those gaps in the care. And then beyond that, the complications don't end when the patient delivers. And I think that oftentimes that's what we believe, you know, or historically that's kind of like the lay person's take on this, is that, well, once you're delivered, you know, like all that stuff goes away. And, you know, then we enter what's often termed as that 4th trimester. So that's, you know, from the time you have the baby up until a year postpartum. And we often are still the same medical team managing those conditions well through that time period.
That's awesome.
And so
makes it
having
so much more comfortable.
Having these community health specialists there to help make sure that they don't, you know, they're not forgotten once
Yeah.
they're delivered and once they take home that baby. You know, we still care about you and we still want the best for your health, and we still want to make sure that you are staying healthy.
How long has that been in place? Just the year. I mean, I know there was aftercare checks with my daughter, and it was mostly focused on her. And then I think a couple were, maybe like 1 or 2 were towards me. I didn't have very many complications afterwards. But like, how long has that been in place where you focus the whole year, and then I'm assuming you make sure that you provide them on to their next.
I don't know that there's ever been, you know, as of 2017,
Yeah.
this became the guidelines. But
Okay.
But we know as society becomes more complex and more medically complicated, we can't just see those patients at their
Yeah.
6-week postpartum visit and say, okay, good luck,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think that that's just the movement that we've seen in medicine.
Yeah.
Is that we are following these patients for much longer.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that intertwining of how social aspects play into medical aspects, and how the two are so commingled. And that's, I think, the beauty of this 4th trimester care, is that you're able to bring the two together and help people walk through and meet them where they are to get them the care that they need. And I think we have been very intentional about that message over the last year or so. We brought on some really awesome key players that everyone in the community will recognize very much. So our Shannon Zangers and our Tina Womacs of the world, who are really kind of just championing this whole empowerment of families and supporting them in that 4th trimester. They've started the new Baby Steps program. We used to have like breastfeeding support group and this postpartum support group. And what we found through asking all of these questions and from some of this work is that it's so much more than just me as a woman, as the mom, but it's the whole family dynamic. So Shannon and Tina have done a really good job at bringing whole family units together and making it about the whole continuum of life and care and how the two commingle. And have this Baby Steps group that's meeting at the library now twice a week, where you can come if you've just had a baby, or if you've had a baby even, they have mamas that are coming who've had a baby a year ago and are still just adapting to the change as a family, and they can bring their partners, they can bring their other children, and really get that sense of community and support. So if they just need to talk to somebody else who's in the same spot, if they need some nursing resources, some mental health resources, some substance abuse resources, some social resources, they can get that all in one place and be connected. Shannon is our navigator, so she is well plugged into the health system and into the community to make sure that she's connecting families well.
Okay.
And that's really cool.
So how does one who is looking for these services get connected?
Yep. So you can always call into the organization, into Blessing. You can call our resource center, you can call our clinic, and you can just say like, hey, I'm needing a little guidance, what can I do? And we're going to plug you into whatever resource it is you need. Probably going to start with Shannon because she's kind of our one-stop shop, and going to get you plugged in where you need to go. One of the really great things with this benefit in hiring community health workers is we're going to be able to deploy resources into the community. So if I call and I say, hey, listen, I really need to talk to somebody, but I'm having a really hard time getting in there because of, whatever. We can send a community health worker to you. So if that's to your home, if that's to your work, if that's to a coffee shop because that's where you're comfortable, or wherever that is, we're going to be able to come to you with this grant resource.
And I think it's important to mention that it does not matter. You do not have to be a Blessing patient.
Nope.
That's what
it does not matter if you delivered in another state across the Mississippi, or are a patient of another group here in town, or wherever. Any community that is within this tri-state area, essentially within our reach, this resource is available to those patients.
How much is the resource to the patients?
No cost.
No cost.
Zero.
That's, thank you.
Yep.
That is amazing.
Pretty cool. We really want to partner with women and their families to help make life easier for them. Because we all have different stories, and they all need to be heard, and they all need to be empowered. And this grant gives us the final push that we need to be able to make that happen. We want women to be able to come into our organization and get back into our community and feel empowered and feel safe and feel like they have been listened to and feel like they have been supported. And what a gift it is that the state of Illinois recognized the work that we've done and allows us to be able to continue that in such a meaningful and powerful way.
So they can contact you again by phone call, by calling the clinic directly, which I can say, like, for this day and age, sometimes people are just scared to make just the phone call. So if they don't want to, get the voice on the other end, you can send an email.
You can send an email. Yep, you can send an email. You can call us. You can walk into any of our locations.
Can they swing by the library?
Yep, absolutely.
And just start off there maybe and say, hey, I was just coming in here with my baby. And
Yep, absolutely.
The Baby Steps group does also have a social media presence, so it would be okay to even post in there, like who is my contact person, or I'm looking
so
for
Baby
some help.
Steps on Facebook?
Yep.
Yes.
Baby Steps
Yes.
Quincy, Illinois is what they type in?
Yep, and that should pull up that group.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Or message that group privately if it's not something they want, posted on the main line.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So.
All good things,
Or
lady.
also, again, reach out to a provider that they are comfortable with.
Okay,
You
so
know,
like
and
your
that person-
actual provider that
Yes.
you're already seeing, I'm assuming,
Yes.
like especially if you're in a situation like that, you could just ask them, hey, can you get me connected?
Yep.
And they could get you connected, regardless of whether or not it's at Blessing or not.
Yes.
Correct.
This
That's
is
awesome.
for anyone. Yes,
That is
absolutely.
awesome.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, one of the other really cool things that this grant is going to be able to do is to help us with doula coverage, right?
Oh, I thought that was so cool when you
It is
mentioned
so
that
cool.
before.
I love it. And I don't want to miss it because I think it's such a huge part.
Yes.
So doulas, for people who may not know, are really kind of your birth advocates, your birth partners, your birth cheerleaders, right? And doulas can do so much more than just birth. They can be prenatal support. They can be your cheerleader and your voice during labor, which our nurses do a wonderful job, truly. But that doula is somebody who's just devoted to you. Like, what do you need? And it's really lovely. And they can also help in that postpartum period. So one of the other really cool things that we've been able to do as part of the Birth Equity Project is to be able to deploy more doula resources. So the state of Illinois really recognizes the work that doulas do and the improved outcomes that you can have when you have somebody who's devoted to being your cheerleader, right? So we were able to host doula training last October.
Oh, that's cool too.
So we trained 14 women in the community who said, yes, I want to be a part and I want to help. So they came onto our campus, we trained them, we brought in somebody who's specialty trained to do this and trained all of these 14 women. So part of this grant money will be used to help further empower our doulas to be able to pay for them to be certified. Why this is important is because this doula training that they already have done allows them to be able to work with patients, right? But we all know that we want to be compensated for our work because, things are expensive, right? So right now, if the doula were to take you on as a client, if I were the client, I would have to pay them out of my own pocket, right? So this grant money will allow them to be able to be certified so that they can be registered with insurance companies, with Medicare and with Medicaid and be compensated for their work, right? So this is a big piece of that. So the grant money will help these doulas who have already been trained be able to be certified so they can be compensated, which is a huge win for our community because now as a pregnant person, if I think that a doula or my physician thinks that a doula would help me navigate through this process of my life better, I can hire one and my insurance will cover that for me.
That's
Which
so cool.
essentially evens the playing field, right?
Yes.
So
Oh, absolutely.
allows women who maybe
Could never afford-
that was outside of their means to get that as an insurance covered service.
Yes.
Which is
That is huge. Thank you to those 14 women too, because I know, like you said, they started off like raising their hands and saying they'll do it. I personally was never able to afford a doula. Like I was a single mom, used all those resources that I could at the time. And one of them was a lady who was near and dear to my heart, just acted as a doula. She was in the CareNet network. So she was familiar with it, but like you said, wasn't trained. I think she'd make an amazing trained doula, hopefully. Maybe that's something for her in the future. But I love that you said evens the playing field. That's something when you're in the position of being pregnant, you're vulnerable.
very.
And the last thing you want is to have like a sliding scale on your health care and your baby's health care.
Correct. And one of the small pieces that we just we barely touched on the surface, and it's a whole other topic in and of itself, is peripartum mood disorders, including anxiety and depression. And we know that women who struggle with anxiety and have either those struggles during their pregnancy and specifically postpartum anxiety are at increased risk of suicide. Okay, so doula care becomes important because, again, it doesn't end at delivery. They are our eyes and ears, with these patients in their homes where they're comfortable and can potentially identify patients at risk.
Yes, because most of those people are not coming to you and saying, I have
and there's
problems.
a social
They feel
stigma.
like they're,
Usually, honestly, from my end, it's a spouse, a mom of the patient, or a close friend that's calling into our office saying, hey, I'm worried about so-and-so. Can you guys please call and check on her? It's easy to put on a real tough face when you're in there like, I got this, I'm a mom now, so I just got to shoulder this burden and this is what I asked for. But it's another to have that care there in their home to help identify those patients that are actually at risk.
So family members that are involved too, please know that you can reach out to.
Always.
That's something that I think maybe people are like, oh, it's not my place, it's not my business. It is your business.
Absolutely.
That's why they say it takes a village, and we want to create that village here in Quincy and
Yes.
and just, you know, take these people in and make sure that we're not missing anyone.
I think you definitely created that village, and congratulations to the both of you on, achieving and getting this grant. That's huge. That's what you mean by it takes a village.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
the
much.
opportunity.
All right. That does it for today's Daily Muddy. Catch us here tomorrow.
The Tower, a great place to meet and eat. But did you know the Tower has one of the finest drink selections in our area? Along with its incredible Mexican menu, the Tower specializes in tequilas for every taste. Names like Patron, Cabo Wabo, and Hornitos. And don't forget the margaritas. On Mondays and Tuesdays, stop by and pick up a single topping pizza and get Tower margaritas to go. Enjoy the Tower at home or in our dining room, bar area, or the Tower's signature climate-controlled porch. The Tower Pizza and Mexican in Quincy.
Welcome to the Abbey, a Quincy tradition. With 6 big screens, a new larger kitchen, and now more seating capacity, the Abbey is the place to be before, during, and after the big game. Come enjoy fan favorite appetizers, steaks, burgers, and a variety of daily food and drink specials. Can't join us? Carryout is available too. Now with a convenient drive-up window to better serve you. 1736 Spring in Quincy. Opens at 3 p.m. Tuesday through Sunday. Come join all your friends at the Abbey, a Quincy tradition.
Instant Replay is your local sports bar. With 18 big screen TVs, we have all the sports packages from college games to pro games. We offer daily drink specials, and come check out the Bullpen, our newly renovated beer garden. Instant Replay, 2739 Chestnut in Quincy.
Are you looking for the perfect venue for your next special event? Check out Utopia Event Center. Utopia has a large banquet room and an awesome bar area, perfect for anything from birthday parties to formal corporate meetings. It also offers a photo booth, stage for a DJ or a live band, and a fully stocked bar, all for only $300. Check us out at utopiaeventcenter.com or call Barn at 217-430-6559 for more information. Utopia Event Center, 900 North 12th Street in Quincy.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.